Despite increased competition, Tesla has continued to dominate the EV market, and as more non-Tesla EVs hit the market, the demand for some of these EVs is starting to wear thin. Meanwhile, Tesla continues to post new production and delivery records, and the Model Y, for example, was the best-selling vehicle globally for the first quarter of this year. But will Tesla's massive success and the transition to electric vehicles lead to the demise of several big-name brands? I'm John, and this is Cleanerwatt. If you've been following Tesla for some time, you probably remember articles about the competition coming, and once the competition comes, Tesla is going to be in trouble. Well, the competition is here, and Tesla is doing great. So obviously the competition is not harming Tesla. When it comes to the EV market in the United States and just how dominant Tesla is here locally, I came across a great CNBC article. And in this article, it had a chart listing the top brands in the United States when it comes to EV sales for the first half of this year. And you can see here that Tesla is far ahead of the competition like Hyundai, Kia, General Motors, Volkswagen Group, and Ford. The problem is, while there is a lot of demand for electric vehicles, a lot of that demand is for Tesla electric vehicles. If you were to go out and poll the general population and ask them if they're willing to consider an electric vehicle for the next purchase, those numbers are increasing. More and more people are willing to purchase an EV and are considering an EV for the next vehicle purchase. However, when it actually comes down to where they're spending the money, more and more people are buying Teslas over other vehicles. Now, some of that has to do with production and production capacity. Of course, Tesla is by and large producing far more electric vehicles than other brands. But even other brands that are ramping up a little bit are having problems with excess inventory, apparently. Now, I came across a Reuters article that I believe is important to go ahead and discuss. And this Reuters article talked about the fact that several EV brands are struggling with high inventory levels of their electric vehicles here in the United States. Quote, Ford had 86 days worth of F-150 Lightnings and 113 days worth of Mustang Mach-E electric SUVs on hand, Cox said. Nonetheless, those numbers might be slightly exaggerated because the author went on to write, quote, Ford said Cox's figures overstate the inventories for both models. Ford sees Mach-E inventories at 83 days supply, with more than half of the vehicles produced in transit to dealerships. Ford sees Lightning inventories at 58 days supply, including vehicles in transit. However, despite those clarifications from the Ford representative, the truth is, and the author makes very clear here, that Ford is clearly building more Mustang Mach-E's, for example, than they're actually selling. For instance, the author points out, quote, Ford built 46,238 Mach-E's during the first half of this year and sold 14,040 of the electric SUVs. So obviously that's a very big difference between the number of vehicles produced in the first half of this year and the number of vehicles sold. So it does look like demand is softening for the Mustang Mach-E. In addition, the author of this article wrote, quote, Volkswagen dealers had 131 days of ID4 electric SUVs in inventory, according to Cox data. Now, when it comes to General Motors, they appear to not be having an issue selling their EVs. Their inventory was much lower, somewhere around 50 days of supply, according to this article. However, when it came to building EVs, and especially the EVs that are built on their new Ultium platform, GM appears to be having issues building enough of those EVs. The author of this article, for instance, wrote, quote, of 36,024 EVs GM delivered in the United States during the first half of this year, only 2,365 were Ultium EVs. Now, beyond legacy automakers having trouble, it appears like Lucid Motors, EV startup Lucid Motors, is actually having some trouble selling the Lucid Air as well. For example, according to this Inside EVs article that came out in May of this year, quote, another sign of waning demand is that Lucid delivered only 1,406 vehicles in Q1, despite building 2,314 units during the same period, And this discrepancy between production and deliveries has been going ever since Lucid manufactured its first Air EV in September of 2021. When it comes to the more recent Q2 delivery numbers, the author of this Electrek article wrote, quote, Lucid produced 2,173 electric vehicles at its manufacturing facility in Arizona in Q2, delivering 1,404 between April 1 and June 30, 2023. In response to these low sales numbers, Lucid appears to be slowing down the production of the Lucid Air. Now, one big bright spot for non-Tesla EVs is the fact that Tesla has been making deals with other brands to open up the Tesla supercharging network here in the United States to those other brands. For instance, Ford, GM, Rivian, Volvo, Polestar, Mercedes, and of course, EV startup Aptera have all agreed to adopt the NACS charging standard. And those ports should actually start appearing in these non-Tesla EVs starting in 2025. And starting in 2024, these brands should be able to, in the United States, with an adapter, charge on the Tesla supercharging network as well. So this is, of course, a big bright spot for these brands, because if someone wants to take a trip in an electric vehicle, if you don't have a Tesla right now in the United States, it's a lot more difficult to get around and to reliably find a good charger. However, if you have a Tesla, Tesla superchargers are everywhere, and it's easy to travel in a Tesla EV. That's going to get a lot easier for other brands starting in 2024 and especially in 2025. So I believe that will help with the adoption of electric vehicles and with more non-Tesla EVs selling, but there may be a rough period between now and then as customers kind of either wait for the NACS ports to be installed in these vehicles in 2025 or wait to make that purchase until 2024. There's still quite a few brands that, of course, haven't announced yet that they're adopting the NACS standard. Volkswagen, at last report, was in talks with Tesla about the potential of adopting the NACS standard in the United States. And this information comes from an Electrek article. However, automakers like Stellantis, Hyundai, Kia, Lucid, Toyota, BMW, and Mazda, for example, these brands have not yet announced adoption of the NACS charging standard. However, I believe if they're going to make it in EVs in the future in the United States, they're going to have to do it. So really, it's just a matter of time. So while the supercharging barrier is being removed for many of these brands, another key reason why I believe Tesla has been so successful is their ability to be profitable with electric vehicle manufacturing. Of course, Tesla was not profitable in the early days, but they are extremely profitable now. In order for these other brands to be successful, they need to profitably produce these electric vehicles. And as far as I know, most other brands beside Tesla are not making a profit on their EV sales. And that, of course, has to change in the future to be sustainable. Thankfully, a lot of the big brands are making big investments in electric vehicles and battery production, etc. And for instance, Ford is improving the manufacturing efficiency of their Mustang Mach-E, and Ford should be launching a new truck in the future as well. Meanwhile, Tesla is having massive success, much in part due to the leadership of the company, and also due to the fact that they started way before everyone else. And they have attracted top talent. They have extremely talented engineers. They have way more experience. Under the leadership of Elon Musk and the great Tesla team, they've been able to drive down the production costs of their vehicles while also producing amazing vehicles that have great technology. Tesla's vehicles have great designs when it comes to appearance, but also when it comes to aerodynamics and efficiency. They, of course, have top-notch powertrains, great battery technology. And when it comes to their software, of course, no one matches their software. So Tesla has designed very desirable electric vehicles. They've driven down the cost of manufacturing those vehicles. And by having great vehicles, of course, demand is high. And by producing vehicles at a profit, this allows them to expand into new markets and build new factories and invest in engineers and really work towards the next big thing. Tesla is not standing still. They're continuing to innovate. And assuming that the compact Tesla EV that is going to be built at Tesla's new Gigafactory in Mexico, assuming that that does hit the market in 2025 for around $25,000 to $30,000, and the Cybertruck hits several hundred thousand units per year in a few years, plus the Highland Model 3 refresh and the Model Y as that continues to ramp even higher, Tesla is just getting stronger and stronger as a brand, and it's going to be harder and harder to keep up with them. I believe when this all shakes down that some of the big brands that you know today may not exist in the way that they do today. Either they may go away completely, or they may actually just lose so much market share that they become much smaller than they are today. Do let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. And also, I'd like to say once again, thank you to all of those of you who support me through Patreon. Your support makes a big difference and really does help make these videos possible. If you'd like to find out more about how you can support my work through Patreon, I'll put a link in the video description. Thank you so much.